Okay, so animation is an international business where films and TV programs lend themselves easily to different language versions and more often than not, universal stories cross borders without much difficulty. So it's probably the industrial infrastructure that may be a little bit harder to crack, with us in Europe working in many fragmented national markets. To take advantage of the wider international landscape, it takes some skills and perseverance. But for those who are keen to do this, to go on that journey, there is a helping hand in Brussels, a dedicated specific program, funding program, that supports audiovisual industry called Creative Europe. So the program is there to preserve and enhance Europe's cultural diversity and to strengthen the audiovisual industry. Animation, along live action, fiction, and documentary, is one of the types of audiovisual content that this program supports. So today we would like to give you some tips on how we can help and what's on offer. The UK has done actually quite well out of this program. It started in 2014, and thus far I think there's 33 million euros that have gone into this country, not just for animation, but to support all different players in the audiovisual sector. Before I go to the details, I think we have to deal with the elephant in the room. So I'm going to tell you a few things about Brexit. We'll put it to one side because that's not what today is about, but you all want to know. So we know that the nations voted to leave, but that doesn't mean much yet in practical terms. So the negotiations haven't yet started, and by no means we have left the European Union. What it means for the participation with this, in this program is that the rules are that we can fully participate in Creative Europe until we have left. So I'm sure there will be BBC News one day when something will be signed on a piece of paper, when we will know that we will have left. But that's a long time away. So the recent advice, the most up-to-date advice that we have from Brussels as well as from Treasury here, is that at least until the end of 2018, nothing changes. The schemes are still accessible for us. The training courses will take applications from UK participants, and so will Cartoon Forum, Cartoon Movie, and all that stuff. So let's not think about the exit just yet. Let's make use of at least the 2 years that we've got. So how can we help? I think mostly you would want to know about our funding, and we will cover that today as one of the topics. You can get direct funding for animation projects either at the early stage in development or later for the production stage. But that scheme is limited to television programs where several European broadcasters get on board to co-finance the project. We'll give you the detail of those funding opportunities, and we will have producers here at the top table sharing the experience of how to make the successful application. But it's not only about money. We will also be telling you how to improve your skills and become a more confident international player in the animation industry, because this is, again, something that this program wholeheartedly supports. It is our hindrance that we work within those national markets with a whole plethora of different financing systems and different partners, different distributors. But there are places that Creative Europe supports, initiatives that will help you navigate that complex landscape, and we will be talking about them today as well. European animation is punching above its weight. It's winning awards and selling successfully around the world. So no wonder that the European Commission, the policymakers at the European Commission are paying more and more attention to the sector. First, it's about kind of fact-finding missions. There were several studies already published about the animation in Europe on European level, or international level, by the Commission. And recently in Venice at the film festival, our commissioner has announced that there's going to be actually a strategy, European Commission strategy for animation, to be unveiled, I think, in Annecy in next year. So that's all very welcome that we are in the center of the policymakers' attention. And then somewhere else, in another part of the forest, if you like, there's a really exciting initiative I wanted to tell you about by the industry itself. And this is about setting up European Animation Awards. Have people heard about this? That's quite exciting. It's in recognition of the variety of different arts and skills that contribute to making a successful animation program or film. And we don't have dedicated awards to that excellence. So there's a project now which is steaming ahead to the first gala ceremony again in 2017. The absolute heavyweights of the industry are behind it. So Aardman, and then Didier Brunner from France, Paul Young from Ireland. And they're all driving that initiative to set up the European Animation Awards. There will be long lists that will be set up by juries, but then the awards themselves, the finalists, will be selected by the members. So see on their website how you can get involved, how you can be engaged in that process, because the organizers are wanting wide representation from the industry. So it's looking good for the animation sector. There's a lot of potential, there's a lot of recognition of growth and success. And we hope that more and more people will be engaged in that process. Today we're going to take you, as I said, through the different tools that can help you get out of the UK and co-produce with others, learn from others, attend different industry events that help you work internationally. But we'll start with some scene setting, which is actually quite grounded in the UK, so we all understand a little bit better about our collective environment where we are within the UK. And for this, I would like to ask Lindsey Watson to share with us the finding of her recent report on animation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you so much, Creative Europe, for reaching out and including the research I've done for Animation UK, despite Brexit. So my name is Lindsey Watson. I'm animation producer at Keynote Productions, founder of Animated Women UK, and past master's student of Bournemouth University. That's where I wrote my research report in partnership with Animation UK. I'm also head of animation at Kindle Entertainment. But this presentation is a summary, really, of the master's report that I released originally in March this year at the CMC Animation Exchange. And what it did for me as a freelance British and Canadian animation producer was help me identify some of the funds that currently exist within Britain for our industry, but also to help outline what it means to be a British animation producer today. So overall, there are 600 studios in the UK producing animation, and over half of them are outside of London, so we're quite a dispersed industry. Over half of them are also small businesses, and a lot of them are started by creatives. So as a freelance producer, how do I get those studios the money I need to produce original kids' television? That was my main master's question. So as you can see from the catchy title of my report, I've chosen to focus on the specific area of study to answer that question. This presentation outlines the 5 areas that I focused on, and the full report is available on the Animation UK website. That's animationuk.org. So, although Britain has a really strong history in children's television, since 2007 there's been a crisis in kids' TV, according to the PACT and Ragdoll report, especially for independent British animated content. This problem appears magnified within the independent animation industry due to 2 unique factors, and those are policies and finance. So at policy level, animation appears almost invisible, And from a finance perspective, I think our industry is really deeply misunderstood. So could the solution be that these policies adapt to benefit the independent British animation industry? And if so, how? To answer that question, I had to understand how policies work. So I visited British government websites and identified schemes within each department. In total, 3 UK government departments, 4 organisations, 4 EU departments, and a number of NGOs were studied. For example, the Department of Business Innovation and Skills contains 7 initiatives, including things like the AHRC, British Business Bank, and Innovate UK. Once I identified how they were structured, I eliminated the schemes that I knew only related to research and training, and found the ones that focused on the potential to benefit independent British animation producers. So the Department for Business had 4 programs, a fund, a survey, an accelerator, and a population estimate with the potential to benefit us. But when investigated further, animation was invisible in terms of its representation across all of these schemes. To take a step back, I thought I would help you try and understand what a policy is. So the trouble with trying to measure the effectiveness of these policies is that they're delivered and distributed in many ways. I don't think I would have done as much research if I knew this earlier on. Instead, I reviewed over 100 of the following areas to distinguish if a policy had a positive impact. I measured the number of times the word animation, in brackets, appeared in key documents, and used the annual accounts, that's where all of the budgets are in terms of where policy money is spent, to identify where funding was allocated. The results were astounding. Most policies intending to promote Britain's UK indie animation industry have actually failed, in my eyes. This is because many don't even mention animation. Not one policy could be found that directly promotes funding for UK animation at development level. The DCMS doesn't recognize animation as its own sector, so we're not eligible for inward investment like other parts of film and media are. Only 3 people from animation backgrounds sit on funding boards or committees of the 100 policies that I could identify. And there's often a conflict of interest from fund managers, as they're responsible not only for animation, but games, live action, and so on. While producers can access development funding through European media funds, unfortunately we do acknowledge that we have a number of points deducted for being such a wealthy country in the UK. Sadly, that doesn't often resonate with the young animators who are trying to get their careers off the ground, or small studios. Also, we have major difficulty with trying to get an increased number of commissions from our public broadcasters who, despite their willingness to work with us, have limited budgets, and our Film Institute doesn't support the development of TV series either. So in a nutshell, I found that more live action projects receive support than animation due to these policies that are currently in place. In terms of the financial landscape, this provided further interesting results. A question came up that could the UK even afford to create its own animated TV series or features in the first place? Can we even put that funding together here independently? Although we have a reputation for great creative, we're also small and quite slow-moving in terms of how we react as an industry. And we're one of the most expensive countries in the world to produce anything from. Some of the other key factors that showed up were that investment in animation appears less attractive than other mediums, and this is often because it's quite a long process to invest and make a return on an animated property. So in conclusion, the bigger picture is that for Britain's independent animation producers, we need better support and representation. Although we can try to identify the value of our industry, which is what Animation UK had previously done, what would we do with that information? I feel we need a strategy. Alex Brummer sheds some light on the export value of British independent businesses, and he points out that they're a fantastic commodity. However, if British producers want to hold on to their companies and keep them in the UK, this can be challenging, as our main export economy revolves around the sale of companies to foreign investors. Last year, PACT and Ragdoll recommended higher public service broadcaster tier status for children's content. This could have a really positive effect. And I've heard yesterday that they're updating their campaign for saving children's television. The European Focus on Animation report that was mentioned earlier shows that Britain is the biggest exporter of original animated content in from Europe, but why is most of the content British children are watching American? One reason could be that as an industry, we're so spread across a vast space and we're still operating in silos. We're trying to keep our heads above water and make money from commercial work while slowly raising funds for our pet projects. So to help producers today, I've put together some recommendations, and you can also find the list of funds that are currently available in the report from the website. Although the evidence is grim, I'm still quite optimistic. There are so many opportunities we can pursue to improve the situation, but we do need to work together. There could be a development fund for original British animated kids series, as it exists in France, Singapore, Canada, South Korea, and Ireland. Long-term investments could be better supported by British banks. And any public fund responsible for distributing finance to animation projects could have someone from the animation background on its board. A public platform for European animation could be created to compete with American content. And first-time indie animation producers could be provided with specialist funding, support, and training, especially when it comes to budgeting and schedules. Lastly, animation should be recognized as its own sector by DCMS. This would allow us to apply for other government funds and improve our representation internationally. So, concluding, I think that there's a great potential for immediate growth in our area, but another review of policies is required, especially after we know what the situation will be regarding Brexit. We really need to work together to change this lack of interest in our industry and hopefully model the European approach. We look to them, I think, when it comes to making animation a priority, and I really hope that this doesn't change in the future. Thanks so much.